Some good news in the fight against woke gender theory and men competing in women's sports. US courts have rejected Joe Biden's attempt at redefining the word sex to include sexual orientation and gender identity, which means, for example, female athletes will no longer have to worry about losing out on their dreams to an imposter. Catherine Deves, of course, still here with me in the studio. Catherine, this is great news from America, and even greater news as we are also joined right here in the studio by female rights advocate Kara Dansky. Kara, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on. This is really big. This should never have made it to the courtroom, should it? In the court's own words, it's a gross overreach of the Biden administration's authority and political agenda. So what did you make of this news, Kara?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So, the problems are twofold. The first problem happened when the Supreme Court decided the Bostock case in 2020. And the second problem occurred when the Biden administration issued Executive Order 13988 on his first day of taking office in January 2021. And the problems have just snowballed from there. But this recent ruling in the Nice case that you're referencing is very good news.
So tell us what it means for American girls. You've fought very hard for as Catherine has here in Australia, for the rights of American girls to compete in sport. But it's much more than just the sports issue, isn't it? It goes into the whole question of, as we know, the famous question which has been asked in our parliament as well as other places, what is a woman? So tell us what your fight has been about and what today's ruling means for your struggle.
Thanks so much. So I'm the president of the U.S. chapter of Women's Declaration International, and I also wrote a book called The Abolition of Sex: How the Transgender Agenda Harms Women and Girls. And I'm concerned because in 2020, the U.S. Supreme Court issued the ruling in the Bostock case, which is fairly well known, which simply accepts the word transgender without telling us what that word might mean. It just says that transgender individuals cannot be discriminated against in the employment context. And it didn't tell us what that word means. And I have yet to see or read or hear any coherent definition of the word transgender. Now, it goes further than that, where the Biden administration has expanded the court's ruling in the Bostock case beyond any comprehension, and it's been doing that since 2021. So the upshot here is that we have to be able to define the word sex in a manner that is coherent if we are going to be able to protect women and girls in the sports context and far beyond. The specific ruling that we're talking about here in the Nice case concerns the Affordable Care Act, which has to do with the provision of health care. And the Affordable Care Act prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex. But what the Biden administration did in early 2021 is say that the word sex includes so-called gender identity for all purposes under federal law. And no one really knows what that means. The Biden administration has defined gender identity in a manner that is just utterly incomprehensible. And we have to understand that this has far-reaching consequences for women and girls, and we're pushing back against that.